Hello Ratbags, it's Joe Plays Games. I'm back. Now, I did say I was going to be more positive with my news and make sure that I'm not always trying to fill your feed with more hate bait that you're currently seeing. But it's really hard to do that when Fallout 76 and Bethesda keep making really stupid decisions. More controversies you may have seen in the last 24 hours to do with the Power Edition that people received. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the idea of possibly the remote possibility of them being sued. Could it actually happen? Could people try and launch legal action against Bethesda for selling them something that is so broken and not as advertised? And we'll also be talking about the update. Buried amongst all the new controversies a few days ago, they did announce their plans on content coming in the next few months in terms of fixes, changes and much needed improvements to Fallout 76. Regardless of what you feel about the game, it certainly does need to keep on being maintained, and that's what we're going to be covering after we've gone through the controversies. So let's get into it. Let's discuss everything that Bethesda are doing to really bury this game even more. So it blew up on Reddit last night that a person who bought the $200 Power Suit Edition received something he maybe wasn't expecting in the form of a duffel bag that actually holds some of the items together. It wasn't what was advertised. According to the post, when you bought the game, it was meant to be a canvas bag. As you can see from the picture, that is not what they received. He received a nylon bag. Now, a number of people have also received the nylon bags. Now, there's a bunch of emails back and forth from the guy that reported this or has blown up over it with Twitter and Reddit and showing that his purchase and his emails, they basically told him they'd run out of the canvas bags and they weren't going to be doing anything about it. Now, Bethesda did respond a number of hours ago stating, "We understand and respect there is disappointment with the bag in the Power Arm Edition. We are sorry. Contact Bethesda support to provide proof of your CE purchase. They will insist in granting your account the 500 atoms." So pretty much this Twitter feed is a shit show for people that just want to rag on Bethesda, and quite rightly they should do. This is absolute bullshit. You spend $200 on something, you expect to get what you paid for. If there was a problem or a reason why you can't have that, then sufficient compensation is in order. When you click on a link that actually describes what you should be doing to claim your 500 atoms back, or if you're unhappy, it starts with a banner saying, "Why did I receive a different bag than advertised with the Fallout 76 Power Edition?" And it doesn't actually explain why. There's nothing here that says why. It's a really bad look. Bethesda are just going from worse to worse at this rate with Fallout 76. I can sit here and defend the hate bait bandwagon that I think was generated, but the hate bait bandwagon should absolutely be in effect now because of the way they're just treating customers. On top of that, the refunds that a lot of people are trying to get, particularly through PC, I have yet to try it on PlayStation, which I'm going to do for science. I don't really have plans to return the game, but I want to see if I can get a refund for it from the PlayStation Network. So I'm going to be giving you guys an update on that and whether or not that's successful, because I understand there are a lot of people that feel that strongly. They don't want to have this full price game, you know, coming out of their money, hard-earned money that they've chose to pay. And then on top of that, it went on sale a week later for Black Friday. It even went down to $35, literally 10 days after release. That is not a good look in the slightest. But yeah, this article by PC Gamer really stresses that a lot of people aren't getting their refunds, but lots are. It's a kind of grey area. The terms and service conditions state that no digital content can be refunded. That's on ZeniMax, the Bethesda's parent company. But it's not stopping a lot of people from getting refunds. It seems to be a lot of people are actually being able to if you ring them up or send an email. I've seen lots of articles, lots of other sort of copies of emails as well sent from people, particularly on Reddit, showing how the responses are from Bethesda stating that refunds would be coming, but they can't process them at this precise moment. And then I'll finish up in the Fallout 76 roundup, talking about the possibility of them being, you know, maybe sued. So apparently this law firm that maybe jumps on these types of situations has had about 200 calls regarding whether or not they could actually do it. They put out some advertisements, I do believe they put it on social media and on their own blog spot. It's based in Washington DC. They've also been stressing that if you didn't get a refund from Bethesda or you was refused, then you should definitely give them a call. Now they're stating obviously the technical issues, which there are many. It's still a huge problem. Despite the patches that have been coming, the game is still bugged to high heaven. Now sometimes this is a bit hyperbole, you know, some lawyer firms want to make a little name for themselves, you know, sometimes it can be a bit exaggerated, but there are definitely real instances where stuff like this goes on and they can be quite successful. Sometimes as well it can highlight to the advertising standards agencies around the world that there have been a huge break or just lies being told, and they will investigate it like they did with No Man's Sky. Now, advertising standard agencies don't always give the developers a big rap on the knuckle. No Man's Sky famously was under investigation, but it actually won against any investigation that came across from British Standard Advertising because of the way they could prove a lot of the features that were actually in the trailers for the game did end up in fact being in the game, but they based a lot of that on the fact that it was procedurally generated and it would be hard or longer for certain people to find it. That isn't the case with Fallout 76 though. It's clear the problems are there to be seen by all, and everyone is kind of more or less experiencing the same issues and problems. So, pissing off fans that spent the most money with you by giving them a cheap and flimsy product and then offering the world's worst compensation for that. Refusing refunds to certain people and not being very clear on how you can get a refund. And like I said, I'm still going to follow it up with PlayStation whether or not I can get a refund. And now maybe being put under a class action lawsuit that would require them to give full refunds to all players affected that were refused refunds initially. The class action may even go further, and it may talk about proper false advertising, not just on the basis of a game being filled with broken bugs and stuff, but whether or not they actually lie to people prohibitively about what the game would contain. So it's not been a good week for Fallout 76. If they really want this game to be buried any further, this is definitely the way to do it. What doesn't help as well that in the last few weeks there really hasn't been much response from Fallout 76 developers or any of their mouthpieces that run their social media sites. They've got a whole network of people that run certain individual accounts across Twitter, Reddit and the forums, and really have not been that vocal. Again, No Man's Sky developers Hello Games famously went radio silent after the game came out, and the backlash against it continued. It took them a number of weeks with all sorts of strange ongoings, with the lead creator tweeting mystic and cryptic sort of tweets. Bearing in mind that as a very small company, it was only their second game ever really coming out, you could expect maybe they wouldn't be prepared to handle it, and famously Sony dumped them in terms of PR support immediately after all the criticism started coming out. There should be no excuse for why Bethesda have been slow to react and give people the information about certain situations. Maybe Pete Hines, the head of marketing for Bethesda, had an inkling that the game wasn't going to be necessarily the thing it should be, because he proceeded to go on holiday almost immediately after launch, which was pretty good timing. He's only got back a couple of days ago and he's been getting back on it now and replying to lots of tweets, but you can clearly see a big gap between November the 16th and November the 27th. In fact, it looks like it wasn't until he got back from holiday that we started to get some information about what the future holds for Fallout 76. So this post on their official blogspot, which outlines what they're going to be doing, details the frustrating issues people have been, facing. Supposedly they're going to be updating the community on a weekly basis with a post like this inside the vault. And it will detail upcoming patches, upcoming fixes. The idea that Fallout 76 could do a No Man's Sky, which started out really poorly and over the course of 2 years is now considered a well-rounded game and much more than it originally set out to be, I think is probably stretching it a little bit far. No Man's Sky, people were pissed. People were really pissed off with that game. There were still bugs, there were still problems. But the game, to all intents and purposes, was kind of there. It was like complete, and you could say that maybe the inexperience of developers and just the mental breakdown that Sean Murray, the lead creator of that game, had contributed to just the problems and just not giving proper info to people before the game was actually bought by everyone. But again, Bethesda aren't that company. They're not a single man who's fronting all their social medias. Now, there were problems also with the Elder Scrolls Online, and that was obviously done mostly by ZeniMax, and again that has risen in popularity, and now it's probably one of the best MMOs out there, even if it doesn't want to call itself an MMO. That actually took a lot of input from console players. Until the console releases came out on Xbox One and PS4, it was still receiving quite mixed reviews and didn't really have a huge player base. They spent a good year tinkering and switching things around, and so when it launched with console, it got a massive push. Fallout doesn't have that. It's launched on all the devices it's going to launch on. The only thing that maybe could be a positive is that they announce it's going to be coming out on Steam in the next few months. And it's just not good enough that there's been no real communication, no real ownership of the problems and issues by anyone at Bethesda for at least 10 days. Of course, what you don't want is multiple developers being out there, being in the firing line for people to get their anger out. That's not what I'm suggesting, but certainly there are social media managers out there. There are definitely the CEOs, the big guys like Todd Howard. They could maybe come out in a bit more of a statement rather than just waiting for the marketing manager to come back off holiday. So what are they going to be focused on? What are they going to be doing? Can they rescue this? Can they put all this to bed? So December the 4th is going to be a big update which will increase the stash limit. It's probably one of the most asked for, requested things to improve the game overall. Now it's not a massive increase, but it's a start. Bethesda have stated that they're intending to increase it even more, but for the moment it's going to be increased from 400 to 600. They're also tweaking loot so that you'll get 2 or 3 good items from killing high powered bosses rather than maybe only 1 item or not getting any decent loot at all. They're changing some of the effects that the Cryolator does now, so you'd have chilled, frosted or frozen depending on how many times they are hit. An issue with spawning at Fallout 76 Vault when you're over encumbered rather than near your base or near where you died. And supposedly going to be issuing a patch which causes players to be stuck in their power armor. Now in a very odd move, they've listed what comes the week after that, December the 11th, so that's pretty unusual. You would assume that if they've got the idea of what's wrong, they couldn't have just put it in this week's patch, but it does look like Microsoft and Sony are clamping down a little bit on what goes through in terms of certification. Normally hotfixes can be adjusted and uploaded at any time. As long as they pass, they can be processed in a few hours, but more considerable patches, more bigger updates do need to go through certification. So when these updates do drop, don't expect it to maybe be only a couple gig. I really hope it's not another 55 GB update like the one we've had literally only a few days after launch. But the next one is definitely going to be adding a lot more quality of life improvements for people that are still playing the game, and I'm sure there are still, despite the hate train gathering like I told you guys in my video recently. There are lots of people enjoying it. I am enjoying the core idea, the core experience. I don't know how long I'm going to enjoy that core experience. I might start getting a bit bored and I might start getting a bit fed up of the glitches and the problems with the game. But for sure, I am having some enjoyment playing it with friends. It's not the best game ever, it certainly isn't, and things like this may help improve that, idea of the game becoming better, but certainly not. Their social media managers and just the way that it's been perceived in the public is absolutely terrible at the moment. So it does look like they're trying to please PC players as well as everyone in general. They're adding the push to talk setting on December 11th, they're adding better resolution support and a field of view slider. For everyone, we're going to finally be able to respec your specials. A huge problem at the moment is that people are just locked into that special attribute and they can't really do much. Even if you've got hundreds of cards, you can't really swap around with them because a lot of the cards require you to be more leveled up, or if you want the best use out of them cards, you want to power them up, but you may not have enough points to really make the build that you want. So it says here, after level 50 you'll be able to choose between a new perk card or moving a special point you had previously allocated. Now I presume that's every level, because if it was only a one-time thing it really wouldn't be much use only being able to change one special. I can only presume you're going to be able to swap points from one of the specials to the other special at every single level. They're making change to camps and bases. You'll be able to bulldoze certain rocks and trees that are in the way now. That'll be a big thing for people that want a nice clear area to build their base, make them feel like it is theirs, rather than graphical trees coming through or problems building with rocks. And a big one here is that your camp will no longer be automatically blueprinted and stored if someone is occupying that space. The server's going to give you the option to either pack up your stuff and spawn on that same server, but you will have to place it somewhere else, or you could actually just choose a different server where your camp will be able to be placed. So the patch notes do finish with what I mentioned earlier about the fact that the previous patch on November 19th was massive and downloading it was a frustrating experience. They're working to reduce it smaller. That is definitely code for these patches are going to be fucking huge. Overall, that seems like still a very small amount of bug fixes and issues. Hopefully you guys will know, but if you're new to my channel, I cover Ark, or I used to cover Ark a lot. They've recently launched their DLC, which had a massive amount of issues. In fact, it's probably up there for the most disappointing release I have seen this year, even maybe going above Fallout 76. One thing you can't accuse the developers of not doing though is really looking like they're fixing stuff. These are the recent patch notes from a patch that went out that corrected and fixed a bunch of stuff from launch, and as you can see it's pretty exhaustive and long. It literally details every single thing they're fixing. So I do hope that when the patch notes come out, we're going to see really massive improvements, and I want to see a bigger list of bugs and problems being fixed. That will show the community that they are on top of stuff. If it only has 1 or 2, 3 bullet points like this, I don't think it shows people enough that they're really concentrating. Maybe they can't fix these problems, maybe that's why there won't be huge patch notes. But again, by the time this comes out, it'll be nearly a month after release. You'd expect the majority of these issues to be fixed. I'm trying not to be over ragging on them. It's hard not to when everyone around you is ragging on them for good reason. I can sit here and say that I've had some fun playing it, but like I said, it's not the game of the year for me. It's not even really classed as a great game. It's just a bit of a meh game. And if Bethesda really aren't facing up to the problems, they're not going to issue some sort of statement saying they hear people are upset with the game and they're going to move forward better with plans. I really do think it's going to start affecting them even more negatively than other people have predicted. One thing I will say though, to round it off, this idea that previous games are now viewed as garbage, or you know, we should go back and look at all the bugs in other games or the problems with other games, I think that's just a bit bullshitty. I don't think anyone's going to take away my thousands of hours of enjoyment of Skyrim. Bugs, problems, game-breaking bugs where I had to restart my character because a mission wouldn't load properly. I've had it all with that game, but I still love it for what it was. It pushed the boundaries, it opened up the world to many, many more possibilities with open world sandbox games. So this idea that it's tainting their, their reputation or their history, I don't necessarily think so. It certainly taints their future though, and any future releases that come from Bethesda are definitely going to be looked at a lot more. It looks like Rage 2 is going to be the next focal point for where people are going to be looking and seeing what Bethesda have done. It has been made by a different game studio. It isn't, the same people behind Fallout 76. Nevertheless, people are going to be looking at this now, maybe in a different light and being a bit more apprehensive. So Bethesda do have to do more in terms of their marketing and maybe really be upfront and honest with people about their future games. Let me know if you're going to be hyped for the next Bethesda game. Are you still going to be looking forward to it? Or is it a case of you take each game individually anyway because they're made by different studios under Bethesda's arm? So there you go, that is the roundup for Fallout 76 and what Bethesda doing currently at the moment. Just isn't good. Let me know in the comment section if you've refunded your game. Did you have any problems doing it if you've done it on Xbox or PS4? And again, let me know what you think about Rage 2 coming out. Will you be looking at that in the same light, knowing that Bethesda kind of fucked up with Fallout 76? I am Jade Plays Games. Don't forget to go and like that bell up there somewhere. Make sure notifications are on. And if you have got it notified, turn it off and then turn it back on. That fixes a lot of problems people have been having saying they're not receiving my notifications. Until the next Access show, I'll see you ratbags later.